Bismillah walhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So we're going to start with our talk show, inshallah. And the talk show is different than your average lecture, meaning we're not going to have our distinguished guests speak for 25 minutes and then pass it on and have Q&A. It's going to be more interactive. So we have with us Imam Suhaib, we have Dr. Altaf, alhamdulillah, and we're going to ask some questions and we're going to see what they have to say. The topic, inshallah, is social media and ethics. Now, to be honest, when I read the topic description, I just thought it was kind of like, you know what, this is old. Social media, it literally says in there, is social media a good thing or a bad thing? Can we use it? Should we not use it? This is something that has been spoken about in this same hall, in the same convention for like 5 years now. So in 2010, we were asking this question. Now it's 2015. Everyone is on social media. Our parents are on social media, right? A friend of mine said that his mom added him on Snapchat the other day. And he just turned his phone down. He's like, I can't accept it. This is not going to happen, right? Or like when all our parents joined Facebook. And then we were like, it's a different time now. So with that said, inshallah, we'll begin. Dr. Altaf, Imam Suhaib, Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys?
Magnificent.
MashaAllah. Let's get started. First thing, Imam Suhaib, you are someone who's very engaged in social media. You have like almost 100,000 Twitter followers, over 150,000 Facebook likes, I guess. And for years, you've been very, very active on it. So you see everything. You see the good, the bad, the ugly, the trolls. You got people impersonating you left and right, asking for money, right? But you still have decided that you're going to be on it all the time, and you do a great job, mashallah. Like a couple years ago, the Brass Crescent Awards, you were top Twitter user of all the Muslim community amongst the bloggers and everything. So it was nice to see an imam, an actual scholar figure on that. How do you maintain your sanity amongst all the craziness?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that difficult. You just don't pay haters any attention. I mean, I think you can't give people that kind of permission to make you feel bad. My mother can make me feel bad. My children can make me feel bad. But somebody that I don't know, why would I give them that permission? Unless I've done something egregious, right? So I don't read comments in general. I don't interact on Facebook Messenger unless it's my kids. And I just ignore it. I don't pay attention to it because somebody who cares about you is going to care how to contact you. You know, like if I know you and I know Altaf, so if I had a legitimate concern with you both, I know how to legitimately contact you. So I just ignore it. And then I use the block button a lot. That's about it. I also don't do everything online. So there's other people that also work. And if people need to contact me privately, then they will tell them, hey, don't send us like details of certain issues that you may be having in your private life. Yeah. So I'm not the only one that's handling things. Right.
And I have no one managing my things. So
and I have someone who, like the guy that works with me now, used to manage for Drake. He's a Muslim Palestinian. I pulled out of social media when I was an imam in Boston. That might explain also Altaf's situation. Altaf is a counselor, so he's out dealing with people all the time. Last thing he wants to do is go home from doing counseling sessions to like jump on social media and like, you know, deal with people. So for 3 years in Boston, I really left that sphere. Yeah. And just recently kind of came back to it.
MashaAllah. Now on the flip side, Dr. Altaf, I just checked our Facebook relationship today. We were friends as of 2007. And last year I left a comment on your wall and I haven't gotten a response back yet.
You and everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you actually told me yesterday, like, hey, you know, I keep up with what you post online. You tell me this actually every ISNA, and I'm not waiting for it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is while Imam Suhaib is so active, you take a different approach. Like you don't have an Altaf Husain page. If it is, it's like some Pakistani governmental party, political party, right? You have a totally different approach to it. Why is that?
So I took a more utilitarian approach, and I realized that just my daily schedule and just a daily life, if I kept up in that realm for me, that it would just be impossible for me to do what I had to do. And so what I do is I don't let it use me, I use it. So if I have to reach out to people, if I have to, ask questions, if I have to get quick information, if I'm going into a city, if I'm doing whatever, that's helpful for me. Now, more recently with Twitter, I've actually changed that and I realized that, in fact, other people do the good work for me by putting up links to things that I know would be helpful for me to then retweet or at least quote and then put my own sort of, spin or meaning on it. Today, I take pleasure as a professor in editing papers. So I edited Sheikh Abdul Nasir Jangda's tweet where he said that he was looking forward to arriving in Chicago and going to have deep dish, pizza, and the ISNA convention in that order. So I quoted the tweet, I edited it, I changed the order, so it would be, I'm going to Chicago for the ISNA convention and deep dish pizza. So I took pride in that because I felt that's something that, as the vice president of ISNA, I should promote. So bottom line is that I use it for my benefit in the sense of I do read things, that whole discussion of burgers, like you don't think I actually pay attention. I was really baffled that, that was a big deal in the Muslim community. So I said, I should look into this. So I read about it. I saw you grilling, mashallah, may Allah bless you for that. So things like that.
Jazakallah khair. It's nice because some of us, we have our own ideas of how we engage with social media. Some of us are really active on it personally. Some of us kind of stay away. To see that exact same thing from amongst our own speakers, that's kind of awesome. So moving from you guys to people, the effects it has on the community. You're involved in social work. Imam Suhaib, you're an imam. You've moved from city to city. You have a lot of followers. I'm sure you've seen the questions you get asked, like I need help, I need advice. And it tends to be something, maybe it relates to social media sometimes, right? Things that happen online and it affects people's lives. So a couple of things. Number one, a lot of people, they have the issue with image crafting, right? So they see all this good on their feed, and this feed is just whatever comes, you see it. So social media, you see what your friends are doing, posting, etc. When people are putting stuff online, it's like you're going out for the day, you dress your best. Well, when you start seeing only good, and then you naturally start to think about the bad, people are suffering from this issue called image crafting, that everyone's life is amazing and mine is terrible. So what kind of advice do you have for that?
What do you say, Imam? I'll go back. So, one of the things that social media really did was not only bring us into uncharted territory, because we've never, as a civilization, ever really had a situation where this many people, simply by virtue of having access to Wi-Fi, or as in Europe they say Wi-Fi, that if you had a device and you had an internet connection, you could basically put your life out there for everyone. This just never happened in the history of humanity. People used to write poems, and maybe after their death, somebody would discover a poem and say, wow, how amazing it was. I didn't know they were this, depressed in their life, or there was so much, heartache in their life, or these kinds of things. So what that's doing is that it's also masking for us many real emotions and real trauma that exists in the community. So even if people are doing image crafting and they're putting it out there, and the ones who are sort of not as savvy to do that are thinking, oh my life is screwed up, look at their life. I think that trauma is exacerbated. It's actually to the point where somebody may start to believe that they have to exert effort to get to that other image. When in reality, if they probably just did a little bit different, they could actually, have a much better life and feel better about themselves. There's a situation in Europe, in England, where a woman was on Facebook and talking about killing herself. And people were actually egging her on, like, you're not gonna do it, like you're totally faking this. And the last thing they know is that they think she died committing suicide with an overdose, with the device in her hand, reading those taunts from people And I'm sure it was probably the most tormented death ever, and nobody could find her because of security laws and whatnot. So when they tried to figure out who she was, where she was, and then someone in the U.S. I think contacted the police there. The police tried to find some relative, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying that there's real consequences with the way we're approaching this. However, in Islam, if you find at least the facade that's presented that someone is doing better in the relationship with Allah, and that motivates you to do something a little bit different in your life, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Even if we don't know all of the background and the details of that other person, I'm all for it because it's a form of motivation. And that positive sort of envy is there and it can benefit. But outside of that, man, it's crazy.
Do you see this in the clients you see or the people you work with?
So just to be more accurate about this, so currently I'm in a faculty position. So actually, currently, I don't see clients. So I've actually, been tenured now. I'm in research. I'm a chair of a department. So I don't do that. But what is true about what Imam Suhaib is saying is that when you work a lot with people, the last thing you want is to go back and see the lives or the problems or the whatever online because they're not accessible to you. And so it's just traumatizing you more because there's all these issues out there and what can I do and how much could I do, right? So that's at least one response I could give.
There's studies that show that image crafting and just what people see online has led to depression and envy. And I think there's multiple studies done that it's called social media envy. So Imam Suhaib, we have envy talked about in hadith literature, and it's a very important integral part of our lives that we shouldn't try to fall into that, but we see it happening because of what's being posted online. So how can we approach that kind of from like a prophetic standpoint?
Well, when we're talking about the online world, there's great benefit to be had from this technology. Allah says in the Quran that He made everything for you permissible. هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. And the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in numerous statements encouraged us to utilize things around us. We have an axiom in Islamic law, al-asl fi al-ashya'i ibaha. The origin of all things that we should engage in is permissible. So there is a tremendous potential, and I'm going to get to your question in a second. I was just thinking about some of the important things Altaf said. With the internet, for example, crowdfunding is, I think, an awesome thing. Social enterprises now that are happening because of relations that are happening with the internet. The ability to maintain ties with your family overseas. So the internet offers us speed. It offers us the idea that distance no longer exists, and there's actually a hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is an authentic hadith, that one of the signs of the hours that distance will have no meaning, right? But then the other challenge of the internet is the shallowness of things that would have normally been very deep. There's a tremendous shallowness to what we're experiencing, for example, on phones. So you might look at an image of a person on Instagram and think like, how do they look that way? And the image, the filtering, I mean, there's so much filter that it becomes an idol filter, right? There's so much filtering that it takes away from like the work that was put in to make that image. And there's a great article on ESPN, that's what I was doing right now. I read this article about a girl named Madison Holleran, who is like, she was incredibly beautiful. She was on a college athletic scholarship. She was intelligent. And I think a year ago, she walked off the 9th floor of a parking garage to her death. And in her diary, what you find is that she started to look at, Instagram images. And she would say, like, when I compare myself to that, I'm nothing. So one of the dangers of this shallowness is that it pushes people to extremism. So, for example, body image problems. There was an interview recently with a fashion photographer who said that I now Photoshop 99% of all images of women. When he was asked why, he said, because the goal of corporations is to create an insecure buyer. So I'm insecure, so this product, this cream is going to make me look good. I'm insecure as a man, so if I take this whey protein, I'm going to have, 10-pack abs. So this insecurity, and this is one of the tricks of shaitan. So I would say that envy within that realm, and there's a number of spiritual crises that can come from this, especially the shallows issue. The lack of understanding, like now people are like creating relationships with people. Like I said, like I don't care about haters because like you don't know me. I've never had dinner with you. You don't know my kids' names. No, like you don't, why would I like the song by Drake, Lot of Enemies, lot of enemies. Because like I like that song because it reminds me of when I talk with the imams, the stuff that they go through. Like there's all these enemies trying to take your capacity, right? So that shallowness is like something that has to be understood. Like the internet, most even Muslim friends you have, like I have 100 and something thousand followers on Facebook, right? They don't care about me. No, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, emotionally, we're one ummah, but if I go to jail, there's less than 5 people on that account I know who I can call. And he's one of them. You know what I'm saying? So that's like who I should care about. So that shallowness and the idea, seeing how people look, first of all, is very fake. Then secondly, thinking that my value is with this group of people who I don't know. And then that leads to this hyper idea of everything has to be perfect. Everybody's so sensitive online, right? Every week it's a new Muslim, kind of chaotic. One sister told me, Twitter and Facebook for Muslims is like our Roman Colosseum. Like every week it's like this issue and that issue and everybody's swayed. And then a week later everybody forgets about it. Because you know why? It doesn't really matter. Like if it really mattered, then it would, that's something in your community you'd sustain concern for it. So I would say that if you're having envy issues of people online, just think about the shallowness of what you're having envy in. It doesn't even deserve your envy. What deserves your envy, as Hassan al-Basri said, is someone that's beating you and drawing nearer to Allah. Like that's where there should be envy, but like Noor Tagore, like she looks so nice on Instagram. Gosh, I wish I looked like her. Let me make like mad nazar on her. Or wow, this brother, whatever, fashion, fitness man, wow, he's so handsome. And like how did he get that metro look without losing his masculinity? And he has the Oakwood beard. And like, you are someone who is greater than living for those things. There was a student, there was a tabi'een, I'm sorry to talk too long, who at the time of Sayyidina Umar was insulted to the point that he came to Umar and asked the man who wrote the poem about him to be put in jail. What was the poem saying? You just live for this world. And he was like, as someone who came out of the Prophet's community, to say that I just live for this world is an insult. Like this is highly offensive to me. The last point I want to make about this is celebrities do not care about you. I was at the Straight Outta Compton premiere. I met Dre. We had a very interesting conversation. I respect him as a musical genius. I think he's the greatest producer in the last 30 years. I definitely have issues with certain things he's done, of course. But one of the things that I appreciated about him in my conversation with him is that he said to me, I was able to take my family and my friends with me. Like I took care of people who were close to me. When I see young Muslim women getting upset if, Kim Kardashian wore the wrong color shoes, or a young Muslim man who is like happy that, Justin Timberlake looked at him during a concert. They do not care about you at all. I was in the music industry. I made 3 albums. The only thing they care about is your money. So the last piece that I've noticed is that the celebrity culture, because of what's happening online with Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, is giving us a sense that people care about us. And they don't. They really don't. If you ran up to Nicki Minaj right now, or what's her name, Miley Cyrus, and you were like, yo, I got your back, her bodyguards would eviscerate you. But I love you, don't you love me? No. So that's the last piece, that there's a lot of delusion in the online world about self-value, the value of others, and then I think these people actually care about me. No. And I'm concerned about that when I see people get caught up in like loving these people in a way that they wouldn't love Allah, or the passion that they should love the Prophet. That is a concern.
So you guys both spoke about things that you've noticed as problematic, but also Dr. Altaf and Imam Suhaib, both of you talked about crowdfunding and a lot of things people are sharing that you can share with others. So there's clearly room for debate where certain things are quote-unquote good and quote-unquote bad. One of the issues that we kind of run into, and we ran into this week, everyone had this was this week's issue, is Slacktivism versus spreading awareness. And what comes to mind is that terrifying image of the young Syrian boy, right? And I remember that day I went home from work and I couldn't eat my dinner. My wife hadn't seen it. I don't know how. I think she was busy with the kids, so she didn't get to her phone or something. And she hadn't seen it. I have a almost 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old son. This family, not only was that young child, Aylan, he's 2, he had a brother who was 5, the mother was also passed away, only the father was left behind. So it moved me. And my wife asked me, are you okay? This is something. I said, no, I'm just tired today. But I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. It's because I saw it shared over and over and over and over again on my feed. At the same time, I also saw tons of debate and arguments from the Muslim community as to whether or not this is the right way to spread awareness or the wrong way, because we're showing images of the deceased, so on and so forth. So I wanted to kind of ask you guys to shed some light on this, and I know that each of you have done your own part or chosen your own path on how to handle that situation. Where can we kind of find the balance on this issue?
Well, first of all, we need to clarify something. The idea of seeing the deceased as being haram or forbidden, based on the fact that the Prophet ﷺ ordered the deceased to be covered after the battle. The Prophet ﷺ did not order the deceased to be covered after the battle because it's haram to look at the dead. He ordered the deceased to be covered after the battle because it was a health issue, and secondly, the bodies of the deceased would have been harmed by the elements. I have a really serious problem sometimes when we take kind of this ultra hippie, no offense to anyone, kind of green, organic tafsir of everything the Prophet did. So seeing the deceased according to our ulama, because listen, traditionally, to be honest with you, in the wars against the enemies of the Muslim leaders and their ulama allowed the dead enemies of the Muslims to be hung, for example, in Cairo for days, as a lesson to like, don't try to attack this city, dude, or you'll become a vulture buffet. Okay? So I'm not saying that we should hang bodies. Don't write that online. I'm just saying that the idea of looking at the dead as being forbidden is nonsense, right? That's never something that was debated. The reason the Prophet had them covered was because of the elements, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and health issues. The second thing is there's no shara'i ruling on whether you should show the picture of this infant or not. This is not a halal or haram thing. This is an activism thing. Activism should be talked about. I shared a picture of this child because if you look historically, pictures have changed public psyche in a way that nothing else has. The napalm images of Vietnam transformed that war and made the American conscience wake up. Black people being sprayed with hoses and being bitten by dogs in Alabama actually unbelievably woke up quote-unquote moderate liberals, because liberalism itself is only worried about itself and being comfortable within its own realm. So it took that image to actually show people that what Wallace was doing in Alabama was a violation of any any notions of humanity. The death of Malcolm and the image of Malcolm. Rodney King on March 3rd, 1991 wakes up the collective conscious of the hood across this country. So, me personally, I understand that images affect people and they shake people. So that's my personal opinion. You know what? Who cares? This is my point. Like, if you don't want to show it, okay. If I want to show it, okay. But why all of a sudden, every little thing that happens, do we have to start to argue about it? Because online has made dysfunctional people functional. It has made ignorant people intelligent. It has given people who no one would care about their opinions the ability to suddenly have this place. And this is one of the signs of the hour, that argument will increase. So this is a waste of time, to be honest with you. There's no Shara'i ruling. No one's going to, like, Fiqh Council of North America, we're not going to, like, release a 43-page paper on, should you show pictures or not. That's your personal decision. What we should be able to do is say, let's say I posted the picture, okay? And then someone hits me up like, would you put your son up there? Yes, I would. If that was my son, I would. I have no qualms about it. Because the greater good, in my opinion, will be accomplished, right? Well, I wouldn't put my son up there. Okay, fine, alhamdulillah. Like, I don't have to argue with you, man. Like, don't put a picture up there.
It's the Syrians who are sharing these photos. They're the ones who are taking them.
It's very similar to Black Lives Matter, right? I got in trouble because I said black activists in Boston called me and said, please ask the Palestinian community in particular and the Muslims not to put Muslims Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. This is a request from a structurally, politically, economically, from a justice perspective, oppressed community making a request. So I said, on behalf of certain black activists, they're asking, please don't use All Lives Matter. It's a way of whitewashing historic oppression and structural injustices in one sentence. And I got skewered for it by Muslim community, which I don't have a problem with. It's fine, right? It wasn't ugly. But again, let people lead themselves. So when Black Lives Matter, I got a call from NPR like, so how does it feel to be a black Muslim? What? I don't really know. And I said to them, why don't you call, and I mentioned the local black imam, and then they said, well, what is your position, you as Suhaib, on Black Lives Matter? And I was like, to follow what the black community wants me to do, but not to get involved in trying to lead. I am here as a servant. I can carry the water. So I think the same thing. If the Syrians want to share that picture, and we're seeing the majority of Syrians are sharing that picture, can we just like support them, man? When Richard the Lionheart, he was a great enemy of the Muslims. Salahuddin sent 2 spies to kill him. They were in front of his tent. And you know what happened? They started to argue which one would kill him. They snuck in, they got under the cover of night, they pulled the ninja move. And then they started to argue in front of his tent, who's gonna kill him? He woke up and killed them both. That's us now. Like, why can't we just support the Syrians and be quiet? Like, why do we always have to have an opinion? Why do we have to worry? Like, the black community is asking us to do something, just do it. Like, we don't have to always, brother, like I took this, class at UC Davis on, like sociology and race, and my professor was, I don't care. I respect you, but right now I want to follow these people. What they've asked me to do, I'll do it. But I don't want to get involved in trying to lead another people. That's offensive. So if the Syrians are sharing that image, hey, I'm with the Syrians.
And for me, I think it matters what state of mind would a mother or a father or a community have to be to say that you've let us down so badly that we're actually going to let you see what an upside down, a face down in the sand, stiff body, of a toddler looks like. That's what's going to happen. I mean, that is an amazing, amazing accusation on our conscience. And so we should think more about that in terms of the picture. And I was driving to the airport. In fact, it was Wednesday, I think, when this picture was released, that I first saw it. And I was driving to the airport. My family was already at the airport. We have an 18-month-old. And the picture, when I clicked on it, it was the thumbnail. When I clicked on it, I actually broke into like a scream and a cry, because I thought, subhanAllah, like somebody actually felt so neglected, so let down. 4 years of a blessed land, 1/3 of the population displaced, 7 million out of 21 million, either internally or as refugee status. And nobody did anything. So they put it out there. They put it out there and said, is this going to move? And guess what happened? People did argue, but there was more in the last 3 days discussion about Syria than has ever been in the 4 years since the conflict began, even before the birth of ISIS and ISIL and all the other garbage that came out. So it worked. It pricked the conscience. It worked. So if we're distracting ourselves by questioning, as Imam Suhaib rightfully said, if we're distracting ourselves by talking about whether to post and not to post and who should post and when to post, then you are in the deep mindset of slacktivism, clicktivism, all of that, because at that point what you're saying is, I have the luxury and the elite status of editorializing what's going on the online. We don't have that status. We simply don't. If you've seen the face of that Palestinian boy, the teenage boy, it happened within like a days of each other, of the Israeli soldier, look at the face of the two young teenagers, the two sisters, or two cousins, who actually took that picture and sent it viral. They had no idea that that's what they were doing. But when they did that, the face of occupation in the face of a 14-year-old showed up, or 13-year-old, and a scream of passion saying, 60, 70 years you let us rot in these camps that you call refugee camps. And you allowed us as a Muslim ummah to be in that, and you didn't do anything. Look at this. Women kicked the butt of that soldier, and we got it on video. We're going to let you see it. And if you didn't wake up after that, then something is wrong with you. That's exactly what the statement was. And I took it to heart. I thought, subhanAllah, these are not people who went to journalism school. These are not people. At the one instance, the young cousin actually looks up. If you watch the clip well enough, she actually looks up like this to her cousin filming, because she knows this is a historic moment. This is a historic moment. 3 khalas are beaten, and they, you know what? Frantz Fanon. Read Frantz Fanon. When you talk about the mask, they actually unmasked the face of occupation. They unmasked in that instant, and you could see the face of that soldier, and subhanAllah, you realized he was as traumatized in that moment. So all we're saying is that if you're going to forward some things, if you're going to retweet, if you're going to share things, at least take a minute to absorb for yourself the power and the impact of that tweet or that message or that image, and then have a statement about it and say, this is what it did to me. And then it moves, hopefully, other hearts, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. So, one more issue before we finish up, and that is exposure. A lot of this came up because of the exposure, or some can say overexposure, of this image that was like the hot topic of the week. How do we handle the issue that we are seeing anything and everything that's shared, or even by dominant media that happens to be what they want to show? So, for example, a person logs into Facebook, while you see maybe like something that your mom put and then your cousin or whatever, on the side you have trending, right? And maybe your mom shares a hadith, but then your trending says, the latest celebrity posed nude, and it's broken the internet or whatever it might be, right? So constantly you're called to things that obviously are harmful for you. How can we kind of balance that and deal with the fact that we're just overly exposed to things that are harmful.
No, I don't think we're exposed to things that are harmful. I mean, again, I worry about creating this very pessimistic view of the world. We're exposed to what Allah has decreed for us to be exposed to. And there's great wisdom in Allah's plan. I mean, you have the right to look at those things or not look at those things. I mean, if I see, on my Twitter, such and such broke the internet with nude picture, like, so what? He's not going to break my iman. I'm not going to click on it. So I think I trust the majority of the Muslim community to make adult, rational, mature decisions. Like when I look at you, I don't think of people who don't know how to live their lives, okay? And I don't like talking to people in a way like, so you better make sure you make good choices online. And that's how I talked to my son when he was 4 or 5. What I think is important is on the issue of activism, like my boy Tariq, he's over here from Baltimore. Online yelling and screaming and posting is not really activism. That's the kindergarten of activism. If we had as much passion about building institutions that dealt with our concerns, that was just a fraction of the passion that we had online, we would be a very different community right now. We have been screaming about youth work for 35 years, and we still don't have it right. We scream about marriages and Ashley Madison, and all of this, but really, where's the investment in our local institutions to create like places for people to get marriage counseling? But not by an imam, by a clinician. We have an issue with, like there was a woman, this article in New York Times, that goes around and takes pictures of like Muslim kids holding hands at In-N-Out. Oh my God, the world's over. They had a protein burger together and like drank a milkshake. But till now, have we really solved the dilemma of affording young Muslims and even our baby boomer community healthy avenues of social expression? Club Isna exists because there is no other club to go to. No, I'm saying it honestly, like what would force young people to turn a hotel lobby is the last place I would want to hang out unless I was in Beverly Hills. I'm just keeping it real. Or in DC, but there you might get arrested for something. But what I'm trying to say is like what would make young people turn these places into social avenues is obviously that they're looking for some kind of oasis within the realm of a larger desert, which doesn't offer them the ability to socialize. So my issue, and the reason I bring up Tariq is like Tariq is in the streets working. Altaf is in the streets working. And that's why I say, if you're online, you're off life. And I'm really tired of people contacting me online and saying, this just happened. We found gelatin in, some kind of popsicle, and like we're gonna raise hell and shut that company down. And I'm like, well, do we have our own Muslim FDA? Have we invested money in creating a Muslim FDA? Then this is just talk, man. Whereas the passion should be in institution building. If you look at the gay movement, you can make fun of the gay movement all you want. But if you go to every city in America, you find how many institutions has that community built to take care of themselves. Jewish community, you can disparage them all you want. But I have never seen a community with institutional intensity of the Jewish community. And to be honest with you, the Shia community is much more institutionally connected than the Sunni community. And that's because historically, the Sunni Muslim community has sucked on the bottle of political authority. It still happens to this day. So once we're able to lead, we don't really know what to do. Because we're used to having someone giving us money and telling us how to think for ourselves. So my final point is this. I don't believe we need to sit up here and tell you how to use internet. That's insulting your intelligence, right? And I trust you more than I trust myself, right? My VPN has changed. And then the second thing is, understanding that this is just surface level work online. If you're really passionate about what you believe, man, you're going to spend money, you're going to sacrifice, you're going to establish institutions that are transparent, that have a charter, that have governance, that have bylaws, that have an evaluation process, that have independence, that have volunteers which represent different demographics of the community. If someone is not really talking about that right now, I humbly have in front of my face a do not disturb sign. Because institution building is the key to the future. Online is an aspect of that, but it's not the accomplishment of that.
Got to think about this is that, again, never in the history of civilization did we have access to essentially what you were talking about, is that things that may be considered displeasing to Allah, but you'd have to actually make an effort to go out and look for something, go out and find it. Now you have it on the device. So as Imam Suhaib said, it does make a difference, your state of Iman and how you're going to manage it. So in fact, if your state of Iman is low, I guarantee you will find in the most modest of photographs or things that are posted online, something to look at that will satisfy your lower desires. Because that's what you're looking for. That's what you're out there doing. So it makes no sense to say, oh, it's out there, so we're not, we're going to try to escape from it. On the other hand, my thing would be if you stay busy and so busy with at least one issue, just choose one issue, not save the world, just one issue. If it's going to be poverty, I want you to study the data of what poverty is like in your zip code, not like in your city, just in your zip code, and then go after that, man. Post pictures of food banks. Come up with an app. Come up with an app where people who want to donate food that's going to be wasted, like this young Asian woman did, she connects restaurants with basically food banks and others at the end of the night, and they're able to connect with one another so food is never disposed. If you're constantly looking for things that are exposed, you're never ever going to look at what you can do, inshallah, to actually rise to the occasion of solving some of the socially complex problems. And I'm telling you, there are people who are hufad, memorize the Quran, issues of pornography. So the Quran itself and the memorization of the Quran clearly didn't protect them, because the lower desires were never brought under control. See, if they don't have any hope, who are the rest of us to basically say, good Lord, now what am I supposed to do? Right? What am I supposed to do? But on the other hand, if you stay busy and say, I'm moved by healthcare, I'm moved by poverty, I'm moved by waterborne diseases, I'm moved by teenage pregnancy. You mentioned Tariq Touré, subhanAllah, he's a student in the School of Social Work at Howard University. And he didn't want initially to do social work. He made a career change. So where is that link that you clicked on or you shared that changed somebody's life and actually brought them to say, subhanAllah, I was about to click on that nude link, and then this other feed came through, and that made all the difference. I don't want to be Robert Frost, and all that, but the whole idea is that the point was made. That you could have gone this way, you could have gone this way, but you chose to go the other way. And you may be the person who allowed them to bring that nafs under control by the timing of your tweet. The timing of your tweet could have saved. Imagine that woman who died, I mentioned in UK, who took her life. Imagine if one person would have said, you're beautiful, don't kill yourself, you're worth living. One person would have said that. Allah knows. She may have decided not to take that overdose, subhanAllah. So there are things out there not going to change. It's always going to be there. I'm telling you, these hotels have in the elevator there are TV screens. Why? Because they know they have to capture our minds. We're not going to give it to them voluntarily. In some of these restrooms, they have on the back of the restroom door advertisements. It's like, give me privacy, man, get away, right? But even if it wasn't there, I actually hear people answering their phone at the airports, in the bathroom. In the bathroom. So they have access to technology everywhere they go. So it's always going to be there. My question is, if it's always going to be there, what are we doing to make sure that we are not being used by it? And inshallah, instead, we're actually using it to the benefit of ourselves and the improvement, inshallah, of life in general.
Concluding quote is that, this is from a friend of mine, Abdurrahman Murphy. He says that social media is like a tool. You can either build a house, it's like a hammer, or you can break the door down. So with that, we have a couple minutes left. We'll take maybe a couple questions from the crowd, because Imam Suhaib, you had mentioned that. Yes.
Actually, this is going on here.
Suhaib Webb.
What's going on right now in the hallway? Let us know. And it still exists, and they will find a way to be creative and be legal and gender neutral. So what are some of the suggestions that as we take on
So I'm going to say something controversial. I don't really have a problem with people doing that. I'm sure the majority of people in the lobby there have good intentions. You know, you be 32 in this community and not married and be a female. You be a white convert who gets told by an Arab father you're not Arab. Or a black convert and you're told, you know, you meet a girl from Punjab and you fall in love with her and you can't marry her. So when you find people in that kind of position, desperate times call for desperate measures. And then you're trying not, I mean, I got hit on by a gay man in Washington, D.C. 2 days ago. I'm just saying, like, there's a sexual pressure right now in society, man. So if young people, and I understand the religious community can get upset, well, then create opportunities for people to get married. You know, so honestly, I'm sure the majority of people in the lobby right now have good intentions, or they're just hanging out, socializing. Muslims are extremely socially awkward. No, I'm serious, like practice. No, really, I'm not saying that to look down on us. And if the closer you are to the religious community, the more socially awkward you become. No, I'm saying this with respect, okay? But that's a problem because the Prophet's community had swagger. Like, they could step in any situation and really bring benefit and, like, comfortability to it. So I personally, I mean, that's not Sodom and Gomorrah over there. That's not the end of the world. That's young people who may be extremely desperate. I'm sure there's a few people over there who have bad intentions, but there's people in this audience right now that may have bad intentions. I mean, it's just the reality of life. We're not in Jannah. So until we are able to really think about providing avenues that are not like weird, like, hey, why don't you guys come to the mosque and play ping pong? Or, hey, like, let's create something called like Minder, where like you can, no, I'm not, and my student made Minder, by the way, right? I believe in being on the right side, you know what I'm saying? Ashabul Yamin. But my point is like, aren't those like really efforts to show a community like, help us out, man? Like, dang, I gotta create an app to get married? Because the community is like, almost like, I've dealt with marriage in the Muslim community personally and as an imam. The emasculation of our men is becoming extremely tiresome. Where men have to go to a household and basically emasculate themselves to the family to prove their love for their daughter. At the same time, sisters, and I know where this is headed, the patriarchy that exists is also extremely tiresome. Well, maybe if y'all knew each other and weren't so awkward, there wouldn't be these problems. So when I have a class and I travel and I see like young men extremely uncomfortable because there's women in the room, like, are you a perv? Like, are you okay? Or if there's a girl and she's like, oh my God, there's like guys in the room, like, this is a class. This is not Vegas. This is not a $45 an hour massage parlor. This is a class. Like, we're studying God. No, seriously, we're not reading like pornography and like watching, whatever. This is a religious class. When people come to me in the mosque, I'm like, brother, how can men and women be in the same room? I'm like, dude, what do you think about in the mosque, bro? Like, what do you think about in here? Like, I don't go to a mosque and think about pervy stuff. Like women in the mosque, like dudes in the mosque. So I believe that your question can be answered by 3 important factors. Number 1 is we need to be freaking human beings. We need to stop denying being normal, okay? Secondly is, in the name of chastity, we are the ultimate perverts. In the name of conservatism, we are actually like more freakier than Robin Thicke and R. Kelly doing a duet together. Seriously, okay? It's late night, I can say what I want, and frankly, I'm old enough, I don't care no more. Wait, grab the microphone. You get VP of ISNA's like,
I got something.
I do not represent ISNA. I am not a spokesman for ISNA. The third, although I love ISNA. And the third piece is creating, and I think this is why I get upset when people are critical of like, oh, ISNA, they had like this little, watch me save this. They had this little like marriage thing where they shuttle us all into this room, like, get to know each other, right? At least they're trying, like, give feedback. Let's work on it. Let's improve it. Let's learn how to make it better every year. Let's learn how we can try to do that. But if there's no outlet, in fact, we have a principle in usul al-fiqh. Allah never made anything haram except there's an outlet of expression for the halal. So all these young people, man, if I was 22 and I saw one of them light-skinned, green-eyed Kashmiri girls, I would go to the lobby. No, seriously. I would be there. I wouldn't even give my talk. No, I'm just saying, and I'm not trying to objectify women or say something haram. I'm just saying, like, if I was frustrated in that way, it would be very hard for me to, like, not try to get married, man. And try to meet somebody in a halal way. So women, I'm not trying to speak down to you or objectify you. I'm speaking from I know who I am as a man, right? And I'm sure vice versa. So we have to provide that outlet so people don't have to do pervy stuff and like act weird and socially awkward. And that's why in California, when I was there, we had a class called The Art of Manliness. It was massively attended by young men. And we basically, like, how you talk to a girl. First night in marriage, how do you fight? We had an abused woman come and talk to them. What it's like to have a Muslim man knock your teeth out of your mouth and then ask you, let's pray Isha. No, it's not funny. But those young men came to me like, this is the best class like we ever took before in our lives. Because like we learn like functionality, right? So there has to be like healthy alternatives, man. So we shouldn't look down on those people over there. That's arrogance, man. Just have the best assumptions. And if you don't want to go to the lobby, go upstairs.
So we knew each other before ISNA. You want to go there? So the reason you're even here at a session called the late night session is because during the days when we knew each other before ISNA, we actually brainstormed about this. And among the things we actually created was a late night session. So that, seriously, you forgot about that? You want to go there? You want to drink some water? You want to take a sip? Take a sip. Go ahead, take a sip. Help yourself out. Make it rain. Yeah. So it's the creativity of it was that we realized that yes, people have natural desires. A lot of times, actually, we found out it was families.
Oh yeah, we did this.
Yeah, it was cousins. It was cousins and families and family friends, and they were just hanging out because they don't see each other the rest of the time, and it's a, and then there were people who had other intentions. And so one of the things was to do the late night session. The other thing was, right here, spontaneous halakas. Go on, tell them. Spontaneous halakas in the lobby. Go ahead, tell them. Call security on you.
So actually, I forgot about what he's talking about. My lawyer is not present. But we actually did start this 10 years ago in Chicago. What we're doing now, I forgot, I'm sorry, I'm getting old. In a small area, and this was like that alternative. And we did Shul to Yusuf. Yeah, I remember. And it was much more cozier than this. It wasn't this big auditorium. But then when we would go back to the lobby, we actually found out many people were relatives. They had relationships that were family-oriented. They hadn't seen each other in years, or once a year. And there were people there who were just, they had that type of relationship. And then we started doing halakas in the lobby per request of people in the lobby. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Doing a great job.
So the idea was what? That those who were actually sending emails back then and essentially posting, then, like Imam Suhaib said, then you had to question, where is their mind? Where is their mind? And when is their mind going to come out of the gutter and stop looking at everything that's going on in a sexual manner? And then we realized, subhanAllah, sometimes the people who were actually in the lobby, who were doing the most sort of displeasing things, let's say, to Allah, were actually not even registered for the conference. They were not even anything to do with ISNA. We don't know where they would come from. But they would show up at the end of the last of the sessions, like 11 o'clock, and then these people would start to show up from God knows where, because the word had gotten out, because your sister and my sister, or your mother and my cousin were in the lobby, and they knew that there were people from out of town coming in. That's what got us frustrated. We said, we have, in terms of ghira, what the Prophet ﷺ said, we don't want that for our women. We don't want someone to just randomly show up and start scooping them out and trying to figure out this and that with them. Or our men. Yeah, let's go there. Yeah. No, seriously, we like in the 90s, like early, like mid 90s, like 96, 97, these conferences were totally different. We'd been in Oklahoma at these like zonal conferences. SubhanAllah, it was a different feeling, man. And I'm telling you, the gutter feeling was not there. I'm not mispronouncing Qatar. Just in case people are like, why is he blaming Qatar for everything, right? They're good people, right? They gave us Al Jazeera. I'm not talking about Qatar, I'm talking about gutter, G-U-T-T-E-R. So think about this, just think about this, right? The Prophet ﷺ, in all his wisdom, used to personalize and humanize every interaction he had with people. And why do I bring that up? The story of the man, the young man, who asked permission to commit zina, to commit fornication. And the Prophet ﷺ did not chastise him, did not say to him, what's your name again? Oh, you're from that really perverted tribe. That's all you ever do is think about these things. He actually turned it so that all the energies were at the lower desires. He made him reverse the trend and raise and discuss and look at the issue from an intellectual point of view and say, what if someone asked to do what you're asking to do with your mother or your sister or your aunt, and suddenly the boy's whole perspective shifts. So before we judge that, why don't we find out who the people are and actually try to program for them? And this is exactly what we ended up doing. And so this late night session is exactly the archival, the artifact or the leftover, if you will, of what started back then. And believe me, spontaneous halaqah, literally in the lobby, on the floor, boom, right there, just start. Probably in a Muslim gathering, you shouldn't go boom. People are like, good Lord, with the man with the beard, like a big beard going boom, that's not good. So don't take it out of context. But it happened. People did it. And those halaqat, subhanAllah, some of the people that would come then for Fajr, we would watch them stay awake through the night, because that halaqah shifted their whole mindset. And whatever niyyah or intention they had come with had been transformed, and then they would wake up, subhanAllah, and stay awake for Fajr. Look at the people who are in the musalla when you're not there. As you're walking by, I came by for Sheikh Noman Ali Khan's lecture. He was just praying before his lecture in the last session. I went to go and to walk him back to the stage. There was one kid in in the middle of that huge Isna Musalla, just sitting there, head bent down and hands up in the air. Absolutely nobody. 8,000 people on the other side, one kid on the other side in dua. SubhanAllah, nobody knows he's there, nobody sees him. How do we know that the people who are engaging in this behavior outside are actually torn up inside perhaps, and your dua as you go by is their last salvation to get them to turn around? And what if we started doing that instead as we went by, instead of cursing them, making dua for them and saying, oh Allah, prevent me from engaging in whatever it is that's displeasing to you, and help them to become better. This is Amr bil Ma'aruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, in the softest way possible, without any kind of condemnation, without any kind of accusation, without any kind of judgment. I mean, cut it out. I mean, it's just sick to be judging people so much. And we're not supporting it. We're not saying go out there and displease Allah. But when you get to the bottom of it, you realize we've torn apart lives because we've judged to a point that really, if only in that instant we were exposed, subhanallah, we would stand there and say what in the Christian tradition was said to them, let the one with no sin cast the first stone, subhanallah. Think about what that means. Jazakumullah khair.
Let's have a round of applause. Jazakumullah khair. So that's all we have for tonight. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.